at MUW, let's just assume in the year 2000, MUW had 10% of the student population, so they received 10% of the appropriated dollars. And University of Mississippi had 30% of the student population, so they received 30% of the appropriated dollars. Well, they still receive those same percentages, and I'm making up numbers and percentages here. But now, MUW has 6% of the student population, but they're still receiving 10% of the dollars. University of Mississippi has 40% of the enrollment, but they're still receiving 30%. So they're already receiving a disproportionate amount of money per student from an appropriation standpoint. And that's good and bad. It's good that they're able to get those dollars in tough times, but it also means that about 60% of MUW's budget comes from state appropriations. But because of the upside down formula over time, because of growing versus not growing, University of Mississippi's percentage is low 40s. So about 42 or 43, maybe 45% of their budget, let's just call it 40% for conversation purposes. It's low 40s. About 40% of their budget is from state appropriations. And so now when cuts come, 25% of 60% of your budget is a lot larger number than 25% of 40% of your budget. And so cuts, the good years have been in appropriations have been more favorable to universities that haven't grown or have actually shrunk in size. But consequently, when cuts come, they're also going to be deeper because they're receiving a larger percentage. Well, I have a map that I'll have to send to you where we've highlighted. When you look down the borders, they're all treated as though they are citizens of those states.
Oh, other states, you mean Arkansas, Louisiana, and Tennessee?
Arkansas, Louisiana, all of our contiguous states have that ability.
And we don't.
And we do not. And it puts us at because the fact, I don't know this, but I assume that if you live in close to the state line, that there's a possibility that there are universities closer. Let me give you an example that I know about. I was superintendent in Pascagoula for 4 years. I was there 6 years in total. University of South Alabama, major research institution, medical school, engineering school, large university. And from Pascagoula, it's 30 minutes. If you live in Pascagoula, you pay the same amount of tuition to go there as you do to go to Southern Miss, which is an hour and a half away. They have a competitive edge.
So it seems like an obvious choice. So, to your understanding, why did it get struck down?
Because there is a belief that we are using Mississippi tax dollars to pay for out-of-state students to get an education. And I suppose you could look at it that way. But
I think 4 states around us think otherwise.
That's right.
Or do they increase enrollment?
I think they have to build. I think they built a pretty robust retention program. Recruitment program. I think they've been very smart in how they attract non-traditional students. Things like offering opportunities for airmen and women. It is very difficult. It's going to be very difficult for a very small institution with a very limited budget that's getting smaller to compete with the recruitment machines that are set up at University of Mississippi, Mississippi State University, and University of Alabama. It just is, it's a tough issue, and that's why I was so in favor of changing the name, because there are still students in the state, and it doesn't matter how much advertisement you do. There are students in the state that still think that the Mississippi University for Women is for women only, and it's hard to sell that to Mobile County students. And it's hard to overcome the impact of the larger universities. I'd said all along, I didn't have the right name. Didn't really, wasn't really sold on what it should be, Renault or University of East Mississippi or whatever. I heard all kinds of things. I just felt like in order to give it a little bit more of a competitive edge, that needed to happen. It doesn't mean that you move away from your focus. It's just about finding every edge that you can find, and that's what we try to do. Increase our, redouble our retention efforts. There aren't many universities in the country that are doing things like we're doing with public universities. You got Harvard and Barnard, you've got those kinds of setups, but there aren't many public universities that are joining hands like this. I think you'll see more of it, just because Mississippi's not the only state facing these kinds of issues. But the recruitment, the competitiveness for students in higher ed is at an all-time high.
If worst case scenario played out and there was a decision made that W's just no, you can't make a case for keeping it alive, do you see it merging with state? And maybe you don't want to get
only the legislature can do that.
Right.
And Bernie, you were there. There wasn't even the political will to change the name.
Right.
I don't know if that changes. Doing that is there's no. It would take legislative action. If it keeps, what would eventually happen is, if it keeps going, it would just become so weak that we would have to cut program after program, and I don't think that will happen. I think we're taking all the right steps to ensure that this is a solid, strong university. We're taking all the steps that we can take to help it survive. It was a blow that we didn't get the name changed. I'll just be frank.
Would it be fair to say that the W is in the most dangerous position of all the state schools right now?
I think that MUW is in the most difficult financial situation.